The National Park Service and other partnered organizations like the Trust for the National Mall will sponsor commemorative events throughout the month of May. These activities will center around the legacy of Abraham Lincoln and the role the memorial has played on national celebrations and demonstrations like the Civil Rights Movement. While the draft would end the almost 50-year federal constitutional protection of abortion rights, the decision won't be finalized for another possible 2 months when it's published. A new law took effect on October 1st, requiring all backseat drivers to wear a seatbelt. But many were shocked to find out that there already wasn't a law in place. The weather is cold and perfect to be tapping some maple trees to get your own maple sugar. Brookvale Park Sugar Shack has been hard at work to get ready for their open house on March 20th. Members of the community gathered here at the Ireland's Great Hunger Museum to show their opposition to Quinnipiac University's decision to close the museum. Each year, over 36 million people visit the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. They come to see the grand statue of President Abraham Lincoln seated overlooking the National Mall.
The Lincoln Memorial is a memorial, obviously, of not just Lincoln, but everything that happened around the Civil War.
From Marian Anderson's open-air concert to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech,
let freedom reign.
The Lincoln Memorial has been front and center for the past 100 years.
And his ideals of democracy and equality in America resonates internationally.
Anne-Marie Whitaker, a licensed tour guide for over 46 years, says architect Henry Bacon designed the memorial to emulate the Parthenon overlooking Athens, the birthplace of democracy.
This then becomes the temple of democracy, and Lincoln is seated in this temple not as a god, but as a servant and a judge.
The National Park Service and other partnered organizations like the Trust for the National Mall will sponsor commemorative events throughout the month of May. These activities will center around the legacy of Abraham Lincoln and the role the memorial has played on national celebrations and demonstrations like the Civil Rights Movement.
We're hopeful that everybody will really enjoy and understand that the 100-year marks an incredible time for the Lincoln Memorial, and it also represents what's to come, the opportunities ahead.
The Trust for the National Mall has led efforts in raising funds for the National Park Service since 2007, mostly through private donations.
It's always a difficult mission because people feel that the National Mall is supported 100% by government funding, and that's just not the case.
The funds don't only go to maintenance, but towards year-round education programs. More details about the 100th anniversary festivities can be found on the National Park Service website. From Washington, Hannah Mirsky, Spectrum News.
Pro-life, that's a lie. You don't care if women die.
Chants in opposition to overturn Roe v. Wade could be heard across Mount Carmel early Wednesday morning. Students, faculty, and staff marched together across the quad, and encouraging others to use their voice as papers obtained by Politica reveal a jarring reality to women's rights on abortion.
And that's something that, as you can see, many of us don't approve of.
In the opinion, Justice Samuel Alito says it is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representation. Student Genesis Paulino says the time is now to speak up.
I think whether we're successful or not, we gave it our absolute all. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what matters more than sitting around and waiting for people to just make the right decisions for other people.
If the decision changes, it will disproportionately affect women who have varying access to health care.
Women who have greater access to economic resources will always be able to get abortions, and it will still happen regardless. But for women who are poor, women who do not have access to these particular things, more women will die.
While the decision would be left up to states to decide to keep abortions legalized, the students at the demonstration wanted to highlight that abortions will continue to happen, but at a greater risk.
It's just making them less safe and giving women less of a choice.
While people across the country are protesting, Paulino says it's important for college students to do the same in their community.
And so it's important for young people to be in the mix because it is our future, it is our present.
While the draft would end the almost 50-year federal constitutional protection of abortion rights, the decision won't be finalized for another possible 2 months when it's published. Reporting from the Mount Carmel campus, Hannah Mirsky, Q30 News. What began as a 4-H project award of 250 Northway spruce back in 1947 turned into a 2-location Christmas tree farm and nursery that is now celebrating its 75th anniversary. Richard Janes, the owner of Broken Arrow Nursery, says that most of their business is done a month or so before Christmas.
Yeah, a lot of customers, very busy on the weekend after Thanksgiving and this past weekend. Probably we've already done 3/4 of what will be our total sales for the year.
With the trees right next to me and the trees all behind me is only a small portion of the amount of Christmas trees that Broken Arrow Nursery has to offer to their customers. Selling a little over 2,000 trees a year, Janes has grown tons of different trees over the years across this 25 acres of land.
The trees right here are Douglas fir. We like them because they grow fast, they can shape up readily. This is, a little bit over 6 feet. They always look bigger when you bring them in the house than they look in the field.
Janes says he sees a long future even after all these years.
It's a long tradition, and of course we compete with the artificial tree, but hey, going to a box store and getting an artificial tree is not quite the same as coming out to a place like this and being at a true farm.
Even as the 75th anniversary nears its end, Janes appreciates the work he and his family has put in throughout his lifetime.
You're never sure what's going to happen in the next day or the next year, but delighted to be here and be a part of it and be in pretty good health.
Customers will be able to receive a wooden ornament celebrating 75 years in business. From Broken Arrow Nursery, I'm Hannah Mirsky reporting for Q30 News. The weather is cold and perfect to be tapping some maple trees to get your own maple sugar. Brookvale Park Sugar Shack has been hard at work to get ready for their open house on March 20th.
When we are bottling syrup, which we'll hopefully be doing in about a week and a half, that's another very exciting day when all the hard work pays off and we're bottling that syrup knowing that people are going to enjoy it.
What the public gets to buy starts in the tiny shed right here at the park.
It looks like water, it tastes like water, it is water.
Yet 2% of that water is actually sugar. The process is simple. Pouring the water into the reservoir pan to heat up, where droplets take a path and become darker and thicker before moving to the cooking chamber.
Maple syrup, 10 hours later.
While the process is simple and uneventful, only 54 gallons of sap generate 1 gallon of maple syrup. This calls for long hours and a lot of tapping. Collecting large amounts of sap is becoming more and more challenging each year as our winters grow shorter.
You need a winter to have a maple syrup season. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, our winters are disappearing.
Where tapping used to happen in the middle of January, Lappin only started in the last week of February and will go until the end of the week.
I really don't think that there will be much sugaring in southern Connecticut in 20 years from now. It'll be one of those things of the past.
Many sugar shacks have stopped operation in the past 2 years in southern Connecticut, but Brookvale Park hopes to see a few more seasons in the future. Reporting for Q30 News, I'm Hannah Mirsky.